Hey, so I been working my way through Axis Empires. Welcome here, playing some introductory scenarios and such, and I've fallen behind on doing game videos, etc. And then today, after work, I had a combination of a couple pots of coffee, a few shots of brandy, and a nub cigar, and that knocked me right on my ass. So, especially the cigar. I haven't had one that potent in a long time, maybe quite ever. And then I kind of passed out from it, or had to lay down for about an hour. And during that time, my brain started whirring and working as I kind of dozed in and out, like I like to do when I'm thinking. But I was thinking about the gaming bits and the situation with them. And I thought about this idea, which is, this is my catalog of cards. And I've got them sorted by era, kind of as I do with my games themselves. Now, I don't have a lot of the new stuff that I haven't played as much in it. But what I wanted to do was discuss, sort of by period, just some random thoughts, really. So I'm going to call this the walkthrough history because, in a lot of senses, my ex-wife and I went through all of my games, which was a smaller pile, much smaller pile at the time, maybe about 3/4 of this, and went through and called it the walkthrough history, starting from the very dawn of civilization, maybe before, and then moving on. So, let's look at this first set, which is my prehistoric games. And these largely are a mix of pre-human games, things like American Megafauna and Tyranno X, Quarks. These games, Erland, these games that are kind of about evolutions of species, etc. And those are a lot of fun to me. I really get into that period, that genre, style, whatever you want to call it. And then I also have things like Civilization, origins of how we became human. And even Palatinus I have put here because I feel like that's kind of a prehistoric period in the sense that we don't have a good written history of it. So, in both cases, I'm very interested in both the evolutionary flavor of games, but also in a more anthropological style of gaming, where we're talking about how the cultures arise and reach sort of that historic level. Fun stuff for me. I don't want to go too much into detail about it because there's not a lot to say about it. They tend to be simpler games for the most part, not like your detailed war games. So then I go to the ancient period. And a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen a lot of ancient stuff recently, mainly because I've been doing the SPQR games, the Great Battles of History primarily, but I also did some of the others, some of the later stuff from the Samurai set. Okay, so here, what do we have? Well, we have some very simple ones, things like Alexander, which still manages to convey a feel of that ancient battle, along with things like Raffia. Even though they're very simplistic games, you still get this real grasp of what the historical period is like. I have the Art of Siege Tyre, and mixed in. I should really start separating these out into eras because this is getting to be too large a deck. And too many eras. It always used to be, I had about this many games, and I didn't want to split it up into them. But I'm beginning to think that I would like to split it into different eras. For example, the Greek era and the Roman era. Let's go on. Let's see what else I have here. Britannia. Britannia is the birth of a system that I've got a lot of games in, but I'm not thrilled with the system terribly. It's too simplistic, too light. It feels too much like playing an Axis and Allies type game to me. It's not really, I don't feel like I'm getting a detailed information about it. And let's see, we've got an ancient political here, Caesar and Cleopatra, which really is just an abstract game being played with a political theme on it. Circus Minimus is a fantastic, and I want to get to this, fantastic little representation of the not the gladiatorial, but of the Circus Maximus races or whatever. It's basically the old Avalon Hill game, Circus Maximus, redone with better rules and a much more streamlined system. But it captures, I think, almost everything that was in the old Circus Maximus. The Conquerors, Alexander the Great. This, I think, was a bird game. Yeah. It was a real disappointment for me. I've got Conquest of Paradise, which I've already done a review on. Fun little civilization building type of game. Feels almost like a Stellar Conquest type thing. Another Richard Berg game, Druid. Not the invasion of Britain, but Boudica's Revolt. And I have a few games on this. This is my favorite of the pile. It's nicely handled, even if the components aren't very good for it. Germania, I don't remember being too thrilled with. This is Varus's disaster, and then Germanicus's campaign to avenge him. I think it had a neat little system. I just don't remember playing it. Let's see. Gladiators, the old FGU game. This I never liked one bit. It's a man-to-man combat simulation. Gloria Mundi, which I played recently. Solitaire. Kind of an interesting game, but again, too abstract, running away from the barbarians, as it were. Ooh, old Aulic Hannibal. This is something I want to get back on the table. I remember actually being fairly impressed with this. Then I have, Decision Games Hannibal, the Second Punic War, which I was very unimpressed with. Hell Hath No Fury, another Boudica Revolt, which I was also unimpressed with. The 3W and Decision Games, I was not impressed with most of their stuff. Hispania, Britannia, clones, sort of, kind of. This was sort of the prequel to another one we're going to see in a moment, which is Italia, which I did a video of, using 10-sided dice, more complicated rules. I don't know if it's just because it's AWE, but it draws me back more than the others do for solitaire play. Maybe it wouldn't be as good non-solitaire. History of the Roman Empire. This is and History of the World. Let's go into History of the World first. Unfortunately, I have the Hasbro version of this. I'm not thrilled with Hasbro's version. I liked the old one with the chits. The plastic pieces mean that it's much harder for me to add a seventh player, even though there are some card advantages to this version which make the seventh player easier in some ways. But I don't have the actual pieces to hold a seventh player, even if there are enough cards for 7 players in each era. I think I would rather the other earlier version. I also wasn't terribly thrilled with some of the other little modifications they made in it. But again, this is a system, a friend of mine who looked at both Britannia and History of the World really liked Britannia. However, the ahistorical nature of History of the World, maybe because it was called History of the World, was very unpleasing to him. I also recently, in the last couple of years, picked up History of the Roman Empire, which is based on that. I thought it was a little more interesting. I've only played it once, and I'm going to have to do a video of it at some point. Maybe get a different feel there. But I remember being more impressed with it for something that hangs on that system. A little bit more historical basis, a little bit more interest, but maybe not that tremendously exciting anyhow. Ariel's Imperial Governors and Strategos. Okay, so this one's broken. This is really 2 games. Strategos is the Athenian-Spartan conflict. And unfortunately, I think this is the only game I have on the Peloponnesian War. There's 2 others I want to get a hold of. I want to get a hold of the old Victory Games game. I really want that sucker. But then there's a Clash of Arms one as well, both of which aren't terribly well rated but command big prices. This is the only one I have. It's an interesting 2-player game, but there's something very weird about it when you're sitting down to play it. I ended up giving it moderately decent rating. Imperial Governors, on the other hand, is sort of a very loose abstraction of these imperial factions. That was something that reminds me of the history of the Roman Empire. There was something weird about that, and I feel the same about Imperial Governors, where you feel like your faction is holding territories. And I've got the same problem with the old Conquest of the Empire, that I don't own. A friend of mine had a copy, and I played it a few times. It just feels too territorially based over what feels like too long a period of time, as though you're not really getting into those divisions of territory that happened throughout, especially the Republican period, which I feel better simulates some of these things. Anyway, that was an interesting little game for multiple players, even if it didn't hold very well to the history, I think. Imperium Romanum 2. Now this is one of those games like War of the Ring that I did very recently that, wow, I wanted it to be so good. And it was kind of fun to play, and I feel like something else that I picked up recently that I don't have in here yet, which is I think it's called the Ancient World series, another Berg system, right? Imperium Romanum is what, Nafi? Yeah. But Ancient World feels like it was another crack at the same problem. Imperium Romanum is split into, I don't know how many, maybe, I don't remember if it's 36 or 72, something like that, scenarios, each of which is a slice of Roman history. And many of them are very, very unbalanced, but some of them are kind of nicely so. Big multiplayer in some cases. Diplomacy available. You have these barbarians coming in under players' control, but you also have these major factions fighting a civil war in general at the same time. It's lacking a few things. The biggest thing it's lacking is the campaign game to stretch it all together, and I want it to merge. So one of the sets of games I have, Tyranno X and Quirks, and maybe American Megafauna, I wanted with Tyranno X and Quirks to merge into one game, and I feel like American Megafauna actually makes the biggest attempt to do so that I've seen. A completely different design, but kind of gets that, oh, we're having animals which can change and mutate, as well as they can, actually have sort of a board presence of some sort that they do. The scoring system for Tyranno X is not board presence precisely, but it's much more interesting than the scoring system for Quirks, which is really memorizable and very easy to deal with, and actually destroys the game as far as I'm concerned. American Megafauna kind of finesses the combination, allowing you to have that changing creatures and still a way of scoring that makes more sense than Quirks did. Quirks just has this lookup value as you compete. You declare, I'm attacking this creature. Well, Tyranno X also has the I'm attacking this creature, but lots of dice, and there's positioning based on environmental factors. Quirks has environmental factors as well. Anyway, we've completely wandered off the subject, right? With Imperium Romanum, I wanted to combine it with a game that I did recently, Republic of Rome. To use Republic of Rome as some way of generating the scenarios for Imperium Romanum, at least for the Republican scenarios, so that factions would maybe have different territories based on their position in the Republic of Rome game, and then be able to actually fight out the civil wars, or even perhaps the actual wars against Carthage or whatever, using the Imperium Romanum map. Likewise, something like the Ancient World series, where I have just Carthage, the First Punic War, makes me want to do the same thing. Why are they similar? Well, they have multiple scenarios with disappearing map locations, cities and roads and stuff like that, that kind of makes me excited in a similar fashion. I was talking about Italia. I played this fairly recently. I wasn't terribly thrilled with it. It has 2 scenarios in it. Very much the Britannia type scoring system. Maharaja, another Britannia clone. Some people claim it's the weakest of the series. One thing that really struck me with Maharaja when I looked at it was this was the game, the first game that I saw with what I thought were pretty glossy counters. It had the painted counters that looked like a real artist had actually painted something to represent from, say, the Osprey books or whatever, in order to give you some image of what the different people looked like, much better than, say, any than the regular Britannia ones, which showed just, you know, a black figure on the round counter. Parthenon, which was something that I did recently, a trading and sort of a civilization building type game within the Greek Isles. It was kind of an interesting game, but it overwhelmed me solitaire, so I don't know how to word it. Pharsalis, I've got this rated really poorly. Like, I've got a 4, my ex-wife gave it a 3. I was hoping for a Raffia type game here. I don't remember anything about it. I'll be bringing that to the table again, but it's not well rated. Phoenicia, yeah, this was a Euro that I played recently and with my current wife. She liked it a lot. It was kind of an auction game, but a Euro where you have to build up a civilization again using, by auctioning off these items as you go for them. Raffia, which was a lot of fun for me. It's gotten kind of middling, decent ratings from the people I've played it with, including myself. I gave it a 7 because it's a lot of fun. It has elephants in it. I mean, this is the big elephant battle, right? And I played a Great Battles of History scenario of Raffia as well. I don't know which one I like better. The Great Battles of History is Great Battles of History. I mean, it's an impressive undertaking. This GDW one you can just set up and play fairly quickly. Republic of Rome, that's a fantastic game. I can remember, not only did I do the video recently, but I have such good memories of it, just sitting around trying to beat it, say 2-player, just to make Rome survive. But then these multiplayer games, and I came up with the variants that I played in my video. The Rome series, Circus Maximus, Hannibal versus Rome, and Imperium. I played these all very recently and did them in a video. Interesting little, in a couple of cases, kind of military or military political type situations in the latter 2, and then the race situation in the former. All of them cute little designs around the theme in general. Sword of Rome, which looks really interesting. I played it once recently, and it very much excited me from what I saw. I want to get back to it. It's not quite as good as Here I Stand, but I really like the big multiplayer, multi-sided CDGs, and there aren't a lot of those out there right now. That one strikes me as interesting for that very reason. Successors, which is again one of those multiplayer, multi-sided CDGs. I've played this long ago and then again on video. I wasn't too thrilled with it either time. There's sort of this, what the hell do I do feeling in it for me. I don't know if that would be for everyone. Trireme, which was the old Avalon Hill naval combat using triremes. I also have War Galley, which I haven't even taken a look at yet, and hoping to at some point. Trireme was a lot of fun. I liked the big, simple, basic game where you're just smashing your ships together. My ex-wife really liked the plotted movement with ships. She also liked ironclads, and probably would have liked wooden ships and iron men too. I was always turning my ships the wrong way and fouling them with each other, which was too much for me. Vinci, I also have Small World for that matter, and I'm very disappointed to see that they are indeed exactly the same game with a little bit of retheming. Vinci always was a lot of fun for me, although I kind of felt like, I don't know, I would have liked a more historical basis to it. So that's the end of my ancients, and we go on to another period that is quite a broad span of time, but I don't have as many games in, and there really aren't as many total, which is the medieval period. Let me check my time here. All right, I'm going to cut this one, and I'll come back with the rest as I go.